Welcome to another Apollo Papyrus podcast episode. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, my interview guest has decades of experience teaching and counseling in public schools, founded his own publishing company, has written 2 series of books, one for parents, the Super Student series, and the other for children, the Family Values series, and is currently working on a 3rd book series, the Cyber Warrior series. His name is John Chanaca, and my interview with John will follow the teleportation sound. Dr. John Chanaca, welcome to the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Appreciate it very much.
You founded your own publishing company, MJChanacapublishing LLC. Does the publishing company just publish books that you've written, or does it publish books written by other authors as well?
Well, right now we have books that are published by my wife, Jane, and my son, Joel, and myself. But yes, we are taking on other authors, aspiring authors that are interested in children's books.
What inspired you to start your own publishing company, and how did the idea come about during the COVID lockdown period back in 2020?
Well, it's an interesting question because Jane and I have been married for 55 years. We have 2 sons that are grown. They're in their 50s. We have grandchildren that are 3 grandchildren, 20, 17, and 14. And we have been retired for 13 years. So once we were retired, we were building a new house. We were traveling all over the world. We were visiting with our grandkids. We were enjoying and so on. And my mother-in-law, who was in her 90s, came to live with us about 5 years ago. And during that time, that was the overlap of the COVID period, as you said, we weren't going anyplace, weren't doing anything, and she was becoming more and more wheelchair bound, and she was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. So we were in the house with her, taking care of her 24/7, and we got thinking and reminiscing on some of the interesting stories and adventures we had gone through with our children and our grandchildren. We said, why don't we start writing these things down? Both Jane and I were educators. I had 42 years in the public schools, mostly in the elementary schools. And I had published things before, guidance material and so on, that were sold nationwide. But I had never published myself. I just had written things and had used another publishing company. So this idea of self-publishing became very interesting to us. And we started to think about these stories, and our son Joel, who had quite a few of them, started writing some stories down, and we started producing books. And of course, we had to learn everything from scratch: KDP, ISBN numbers, how to illustrate, how to format, how to engage illustrators on Fiverr, discuss with them, write the storylines and the scenes. And do all that is involved in producing a book. And that was about 2 years ago that we got involved with that adventure, almost 2.5 years. So that's what we've been doing, and it has grown like crazy.
Feel free to tell our listeners more about your experience in education, as you have a doctoral degree in education and more than 4 decades of experience teaching and counseling in public schools.
Exactly. Lots of experiences. I've taught kindergarten all the way through 8th grade, but spent most of my time, 17 years in the classroom teaching the grades, and then the last 25 years as an elementary counselor, working in every single classroom in an elementary school. I'm here in the South right now, South Carolina, and we did most of our work as a counselor right here in the elementary schools. During that time, thousands of children, obviously met thousands of children and parents and all that's involved in working with the public schools. I was fortunate enough to publish 2 programs, one called Peer Pals, where it was an older children like in fourth and fifth grade going down to the lower grades during their recess, their lunchtime breaks at various times to go down and mentor and read to, do math, and become friends with big brothers and big sisters to kindergarten, first, and second grade kids. And it was very successful. That program was boxed and so on and sold all over the United States. It was called Peer Pals. And then I was fortunate enough to have a trip to Japan, a Fulbright scholarship, where I spent a month and a half, along with other educators in the United States, 100 of them, 2 from each state, and explore the Japanese educational system. And during that time was really impressed with the elementary schools and how students there worked in the elementary schools. And I came back and I developed a program called Super Student, which was a program for teachers and schools to develop super students in as part of the regular routine as they work with children from kindergarten all the way up. And during that process, really got interested in what makes a good student and so on. So that combined with what we knew about parents, I had a Christian marriage and family practice also during that time in the evenings. I put together a parenting program along with our publishing book. So we have 2 lines of publishing, a family values series, and then a series that has to do with super student and parenting materials. And we just got done with publishing 3 books, Survival Guide for Parents, Part 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to combine all of those to make a larger book called Power Parenting that we're going to be turning into a course. So lots of experiences with children and parents. It's been a wonderful ride, wonderful experience. God has given us all kinds of opportunities to share. Jane, by the other hand, she was in the elementary schools, but also moved up to the high school, doing a remedial program there for kids who are having problems reading and doing math. So she spent the last part of her career working with high school students.
You mentioned the Super Student series, which is one of the book series that you've written. Without spoiling too much of it, what is it about? What inspired you to create it? And what do you hope that children who read it take away from it?
Okay, in that series, there's some books for children. One called The Keymaker, which is an excellent kind of almost a mythical kind of story about kids that got lost and then they are having problems in school and they come to a keymaker who helps them find their way. But the other books are actually intended for parents. The Survival Guide for Parents, Part 1, 2, and 3 are ways that parents can nurture successful students in their own family in the modern world. So what should they do? What kinds of beliefs should they have? What kinds of strategies should they have? And are there any skills involved that they can actually be teaching their children to become very good students? Just what constitutes a good student? So these books are kind of transformative, that the parenting series, in that once you read them, you're challenged with making changes in your own life as a parent. Because I truly believe that you are actually teaching children your ethical and moral beliefs as you live them out, okay? And that reflects on the kids. When they take those ethics and morals into school, that's the kinds of things really teachers are looking for as far as excellent students. What I mean by that is, for example, educators have come up with basically 8 skills that they look for in a student. Things like raising their hand, being prepared for their work, finishing all their work, getting along with other students, having a positive attitude. These kinds of things, these kinds of skills are really which not only promotes learning for the individual student, but these are the things that teachers are looking for in a student. Because if you project these kinds of skills in a classroom, you're going to learn. Learning is a natural thing. You don't have to teach a child to learn. What you do have to do is teach them how to behave and how to act in a classroom and survive in a classroom so that they can grab and get as much good stuff out of the teaching experience in a group. Basically, teaching is in a group, and they learn. So that's what those books are about.
Another series of yours is the Family Value series. Without spoiling too much of that series, what is it about and what themes do you explore in the series?
Okay, and that's a good question because when we wrote these books about our children and so on, we tried to pick stories and events that had to do with ethical and moral values in the story, that they would teach these things to children, and really their parents sharing the books with them at home and so on. And what we did was take various situations, basically around animals. We had a lot of animals when we were raising the kids. We had cats and dogs and chickens, and we were almost on a farm doing like a little house on the prairie kind of thing when we first started out. We're in a small home that was in the middle of 10,000 acres of woods. And we basically had a huge garden, had chickens, had fruit trees, and we were using the woods for firewood and for exploration. And we had a lot of adventures. And to keep us involved and we had animals. Okay, so they had pets. And some of the stories, like for example, the first book was Patches the Cat is a Thief. And it's about a story about a cat that came to us and kept taking things and showing us that he wanted to be part of the family. He would come in with socks and shoes and various items and so on to try to show. And that, of course, had to do with, treating animals and stealing and that kind of thing. And then Jane wrote a book called Babe, Our Floppy-Eared Bunny, which is a story about a funny gift that our son gave us when we were living in South Carolina, and how that little baby rabbit, kind of changed our lives as a family. Another one was Annie's Flutterflies, which is a story about my granddaughter going to school, meeting a lovely woman, an African-American lady who helped her get through bullying and teasing. Jane wrote another book called Where'd the Moon Go?, which was an exploration of one of the first things one of our granddaughters said, and she's trying to figure out just where does the moon go. A Kitty Named Cricket is another one, another adventure story. Talked about compassion and again, caring for animals, love and concern, respect. And then Joel did one on Hunter the English Setter, which was another animal we had. The first four books that we have written, I put into a collection called Humor and Heart, Family Values Storybook Collection, and we're happy to announce that it won the Global Book Award 2024 for Best Children Collection. So we've had some success with these books, and we've just been real excited about sharing them with others and getting them out there for the public to look at and be aware of us.
As I understand it, you've recently started another book series, the Cyber Warrior series. This may be a series in progress without any books published yet.
Yeah, one is finished, but it's not published yet. We have a couple of industries that are asking us about it and to see if we could cooperate and collaborate with them. Cyber safety for especially elementary kids, and this series is slanted to the elementary children, probably third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade. It's becoming more and more of a topic because of various reasons: predators, just cyber safety of information, drugs, bad influences that are involved, as you can imagine, Aaron, on cell phones and laptops and all the rest. So yeah, we developed one story called Cyber Warriors, and it's going to probably turn into a series because there's a lot of different aspects of cyber safety we would like to secure. But as I said, the first book is being looked at by various industries, communication industries, internet communication groups, and hopefully that will be out maybe in the spring or summer. But we're exploring that whole area of cyber safety for young people.
What was it like to collaborate with your son, Joel Chanaca, on his book In the Shadow of the Mountain Hunter, Our English Setter?
Just in general, collaborating with him is kind of unique. It's exciting and fun for us. Fortunately, both of our sons live close nearby, and our grandchildren have been raised nearby, and we've been involved in their lives, and that's a very fortunate thing for us. My son Joel is a DNR officer in South Carolina, and he has so many experiences with nature and saving the environment and being involved in the environment. So he's got a great love for nature, and all his books are center around either animals or the environment. And we are, generally speaking, he comes up with a story. We look it over, proof it, and so on. And so there's a lot of discussion, collaboration back and forth. He'll send me things, or he'll come on over and visit, and we'll sit in front of the computer. And once we decide on the story itself, then we have to break it up into reasonable scenes. And I think I actually heard on one of your podcasts, Aaron, that you actually have done a book. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was several years ago, and I'm currently writing quite a few more books. And once I start getting more books published, I'm going to pull the first book I wrote off the market.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if I think you've interviewed some children's book authors.
Yes, I've interviewed several of them.
Yeah, and they seem to describe, similar things that I've gone through. To actually build a children's book, it's a lot different than doing a novel or doing, some kind of a novelle or something that, is just mostly words. When you start to engage an illustrator, there's a lot of communication has to go through. So to get back to Joel and I and our collaborations, once we devise the scenes and we break it up into actual scenes, we of course need to have illustrations go with those scenes. And that's where we get involved with Fiverr professional illustrators. And we've done work with people from Pakistan, from India, from Serbia, from the United States. And we have a certain style that we'd like to continue, and that is kind of just traditional, kind of rounded, beautiful. Our goal is to make wholesome, beautiful books. They're pleasing, very pleasing to the eye. So we like colors and a lot of good details in the drawings. We will send them pictures of the various characters because, as I said, most of the books were done. They involved my sons or my grandchildren, and so we'll send them pictures. And then we go step by step. It's scene by scene. They do all the sketches first. And then once we like the sketch, normally what we'll do is hire 3 illustrators and send them one scene, and we'll pick the illustrator that comes closest to the ideas that we're having. And it also gives us a chance to see how we're communicating with them. And then once we settle on that illustrator, it'll go scene by scene, as I said. And once we get the sketches the way we want, we've done all ours in watercolors, so they're really beautiful. And then we take it scene by scene. So that whole collaboration involves Joel okaying things and discussing with the illustrator, just make a change here and just do this and change back. There's a lot of discussion back and forth before you actually have all the pictures, the illustrations, just the way you want them. And of course, then comes the formatting of the book, putting it all together. So anytime, whether Jane was writing a book or Joel was writing a book, there's obviously a lot of discussion And we try to take our time doing that. It's something we don't want to rush, and so we'll just go step by step.
One final question. What advice would you give to its aspiring children's book authors who are just starting out, especially those with no prior knowledge of book publishing or how the book publishing industry works?
Well, they've got a choice. When you start, if you, a lot of people have good stories. They have excellent, wonderful stories, and that's super. To try to get them published, you can go the traditional way, which is long and arduous. Try to find a publisher and so on, send your work to them. Again, it depends on what stage you're in. Some people have an idea, but they don't really want to do the writing. If they want to self-publish, that would be the other alternative. They have a lot of studying to do, okay? And I guess that's one reason why we're asking aspiring authors, children's book authors, if they're interested, to come and visit us at our website and let us know. And we can do that for them, obviously, because it's not just you sit down and write the book and then you go to KDP and upload it and so on. It's a lot more detailed than that, as I explained with the illustrator and so on. And then the formatting, it has to be just right. You want to make sure you quality check it. It's even a good idea to beta test the book with small groups or elementary schools or whatever you're going to see how it reacts. Make changes as you can do there, and then you do the uploading. But even as arduous as all that process is, actually, you can finally get a book published on a KDP, and then, of course, it's marketing it and selling it and getting it out to for eyes to see it and look at it. Even uploading it to KDP, once you do that, there's all kinds of other things you should and can do, like A+ content or putting a video. That means you're going to get involved with YouTube kinds of things, social media, how to post all that stuff, maybe Amazon ads. So all of that is cumbersome and involved. I had the time and the money to be able to do that as I'm retired. Jane was retired. Like we've already discussed, we're home. And so a lot of our day is spent on working on projects for publication, working on this. So I don't want to be discouraging, because if you do a long-term kind of a thing, you can be nibbling at this and learning along the way. There's all kinds of tools and ways to do it yourself. It's just that it's a long, drawn-out affair. If you want it done quickly, then you would have someone like myself or another publisher, actually help you with the book.
John, thank you for appearing on the Apollo Papyrus podcast. You were a wonderful guest to interview.
Well, I appreciate your time and what you're doing, by the way, so much. And good luck with your podcast. I enjoy looking at sampling the speakers you have, and just continue the great work.
It was wonderful to interview such a multi-talented person, and I wish John the best with his future book writing and publishing endeavors. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to find your writing and reading purpose. Bye for now. Copyright Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.